This is Paul Zimmerman, and today on the Everyday Rose Show, we're going to learn all about the American Garden Rose Selection, trials, and why it's important for you. Rose trials in this country, and in fact around the world for quite a while. And a rose trial actually judges the entire plant, as opposed to a rose show where you're judging just the bloom itself. Both are good. They have different means to an end, but we're going to focus on rose trials because as gardeners, you're interested in the entire plant, not just the flower. Today we're going to meet the AGRS trials, American Garden Rose Selection Trials. Wonderful trial that takes place across the country. You're going to meet the 2022 winners. A little sneak preview coming up for you there on that as well. We'll learn about the trials, how they worked. I asked my good friend Chris Van Cleve. You probably know him as Redneck Rosarian, host of Rose Chat Radio. He's the publicity and marketing person for AGRS trials. Wonderful, wonderful guy. So we're going to go and talk to Chris, learn about the trials, meet the winners. So let's go meet Chris.
Chris, it is good to see you this morning. How are you on this lovely Friday morning in early September? The weather's cooler here. How about you?
Oh, it has cooled down here in Alabama. It's awesome. It's good to be here.
Yeah, well, it's nice. And the nice thing about, as you and I know with cool weather, the roses are starting to grow again. So come on, fall. We're ready for that fall growth.
That's right. I'm ready for a fall flush of bloom.
Yeah, I am too. And speaking of fall flushes of bloom and great roses, today's topic, as I've introduced already, is the American Garden Rose Selection Trials. And I just want to introduce folks to these trials and what they are. So would you start by introducing what is your role in the trials, and then give us a little bit about why was the AGRS trials created in the first place?
Right. Well, I serve on the board of the AGRS as the marketing director for the organization. And the AGRS, or the American Garden Rose Selections organization, is a group of individuals that is dedicated to seeing quality, sustainable roses come to the marketplace. And when I say the marketplace, I mean backyard gardens, roses that are easy to grow and that are easy care.
Yeah, and you mentioned one word in there that's near and dear to my heart, which is sustainable, because I think that's important. I feel sustainable is important for the backyard gardener because that's how they take care of them. So what got it to sustainable? What was part of that decision to make it that way?
Well, I think the industry as a whole is getting away from what I call finicky roses, and the market sort of drives that. As you said, people today want a beautiful shrub in their garden, and they don't have a lot of time to care for it. It's not that they don't care. It's like time constraints prevents them from being in the garden. They all have busy careers. They have kids in soccer. They've got all sorts of things going on in their life, but they want beautiful plants in their garden. And so that sort of drove us to sustainability. The harm of pesticides also drove us to sustainability. I don't want to do anything that's going to harm the environment, and there are millions like me that don't want to do anything to harm the environment. So we definitely want to get away from that. And guess what? Research and development has come far enough down the road to where we're here. We have sustainable roses now, roses that you can put in the ground and grow with minimal care.
Yeah, and sustainable is also then that whole holistic approach to gardening, which is, beneficial insects, take care of your regular insects. And if a rose is more resistant to disease, then you have to do less in terms of fungicides and things along those lines. So I think that's an important takeaway, is that AGRS trials are really aimed at rating roses and giving awards for the backyard gardener. And the other key component about this, and I really want you to hammer on this one a little bit, is that these roses trials, the AGRS trials, are regional. And that is so important. So just take some time with that one.
Regionality in roses is very important. mainly because what grows well in Alabama may not grow well in upstate New York. So we have divided the country up into 6 different regions that will give us really pinpoint accuracy on how well roses will grow in what I call your neck of the woods.
I love the fact that they're stressing regionality, because up till now, if you think about it, roses haven't really been sold in a regional manner. We used to have a trial in the United States called the AGRS, All American Rose Selections. And while they were judged in different gardens around the country, they only really named one winner for the entire country. The fact that now you can say, okay, I live in the Pacific Northwest, for example, I can go see roses that were judged. So, I mean, talk about the fact that this is such a new, and I think a breakthrough for roses being addressed regionally for the first time, and really that I can remember.
Right, absolutely. It is a breakthrough, Paul. It's a breakthrough on many levels because as we trial these roses, we're not only looking for sustainability, we're looking for disease resistance, pest tolerance, the form of the bloom. You know, one thing that's very important to me about these trials is how well that rose finishes on the shrub. Does it ball up and turn brown, or do the petals release and leave you with a hip? Those things are very important. That's a little more detail than most folks typically want to know, but I think it's important that consumers know that these trials exist and this type of research and development is continuing in the background before a rose ever comes to your home center.
Well, and the nice thing too is for the breeders of these roses, for example, we're going to talk about some of them in just a moment when we talk about the 2022 winners, is they're going to get feedback from these trials, and that's going to give them an idea of how to take their breeding forward and which lines to use as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is a valuable resource for them because you know the breeders typically have trial grounds at home, wherever they're doing their program, and they get the benefit of 13 trial gardens in the United States where they can send their plant materials and they be under evaluation for several years before, and they'll get ongoing feedback on that as well.
Yeah, and all evaluation for the home backyard gardener, which is really who you know, that's who buys roses at the end of the day. So I think it's a great trial. Yeah, I love the regionality. I love the sustainability. I love every concept of what's going on. And I think a question I think that we all want to ask is, so is AGRS independent of the rose and plant horticultural industry?
It is indeed. It is an independent organization. Now, we have industry leaders as a part of our board, but they do not, their influence is only as strong as their seat on the board. That we have a variety of individuals from the horticulture industry. We have backyard gardeners that are on this board as well that help to drive the success of the organization.
Yeah, and I think that's important to establish, is folks to understand that while the industry, certainly they enter the roses and they may be on the board, end of the day, they have zero say in the winners, and they really don't even know the winners until you guys announce them, correct?
Exactly, exactly. We have a numbering process where the roses on trial, they don't even know the names of them or the cultivars until the winners are announced. So we use numbers throughout the trial process, and whatever that score for that particular rose is, and at that point it's just a number. That's how we determine the winners. It's a blind trial to those who evaluate the scoring.
See, and that's important because even the judges don't know who the winners or who the entrants are, which is important because they may say, oh gosh, you know, I know that person, I'd like to see them win. Well, they have no idea what's going on.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's important. So I think you know what I love about this trial, and we can sort of recap this initial segment before we meet the 2022 winners, which we're all waiting. It's kind of like the Oscars here, the envelope.
I know, it's exciting.
It is, yeah, it really is. And I think you know, we've got a sustainable trial. It's regional. By the way, folks, all this information is on the AGRS website, which you'll see periodically throughout this video being flashed up. So if you live in New England, the Pacific Northwest, the Southeast, like Chris and I do, you can go to your region, you can see past winners, they're all listed, and then you can say, okay, this is a great starting place for roses to begin. So, I mean, Chris, I think that's one way it benefits gardeners. And just, you know, as a rose lover yourself, you know, what excites you about this to getting, you know, you and I are always on a mission to get people to grow roses who haven't grown them. So what excites you about this trial in that capacity?
Well, you know, it excites me because I know that the winners that come out of these trials are tried and true varieties that when you see these varieties in your home center, you can buy that rose with confidence. And you take that, put it in your garden, you get a win with that. That builds your confidence level as a gardener. And like you said earlier, you're more willing then to add perennials and other things to your garden that just overall enhances your well-being and gives you a more beautiful space.
So, Chris, before we meet the winners, I want to talk a little bit about how many regions, and is there a minimum criteria for you guys to even announce a winner in the first place?
Yes, indeed. There are 6 regions across the United States that the AGRS has divided up the country, and you actually have to win, or your rose actually has to win in 3 of those regions to even be eligible for the AGRS designation.
That's great. That it's basically, you have 6 regions identified in the United States. That's important because there are very different regions in the United States. It's a very different, big country. And you have to win in a minimum of 3. And I love that because that means that that these roses are really being put to their test and put to their criteria. So I think that's absolutely fabulous stuff. So I think with all that said, we are ready to announce the 2022 AGRS winners. So ladies and gentlemen, Chris Van Cleve.
Very glad to announce this year's winners. I'll tell you, as we went through all of these cultivars this last year, to see these 4 winners for 2022 rise to the top, it's pretty exciting. So the very first one on the list is a rose that was bred by David Slezak, introduced by Star Roses and Plants. The name of it is Pretty Polly Pink. It was a regional choice winner in 4 regions this year. So it won in the Northeast, the Northwest, the South Central United States, as well as the Southeast. So this is a good rose for me and you, Paul.
Yeah, this will do really well, and it's David has certainly always he's identified going in this direction of roses that are disease resistant, easy to grow. It's from the polyantha class, which are some of the most great shrubs around. I mean, as folks can see in the photographs, I mean, it's got this wonderful kind of strong pink. Man, I could see, stick this with like a blue salvia to make it pop, or a blue veronica. I mean, it's just a wonderful little, I would imagine, incredibly carefree little rose.
Oh yeah, yeah. A lot of wow factor in the rose, I think. When you put it in the garden, like you said, couple it with a couple of other things, and I'm always going for the wow factor. So this rose is definitely on my list. Next one is a rose that was bred by Christian Bedard at Weeks Roses. It is called Celestial Night. Now, it was a regional choice winner in 3 regions, in the South Central region, the Southeast region, and the Southwest region. Now, this rose also won the Fragrance Award this year, which is an exceptional honor. I actually grow this rose in my garden, and it is not only a knockout as far as beauty, it is very, very fragrant.
And people love that. I mean, the bloom is absolutely stunning, as people can see it, and a couple fragrance on top. But then you've got disease resistance on top of that. I mean, that's just that's a classic rose. It's going to be a classic for a long time. And hats off to Christian, to no surprise, breeding roses along these lines.
That's right. That's right. Now, our third winner for 2022 is a rose by Tom Caruth, introduced by Weeks Roses, and it's called Easy on the Eyes. It was a winner in 5 regions, 5 out of the 6 regions: North Central, Northwest, South Central, the Southeast, and Southwest.
This is nice. I mean, this is one of those ones that has that button eye. This is out of the Holthemia series, is what these were created for many, many years. And we were talking before we even started the show that some of the Holthemias don't do well in all parts of the country. So the fact that we have an Holthemia rose that did well in 5 regions in the country in a sustainable trial is incredibly exciting, and a big, big breakthrough. And even though Tom is no longer breeding roses, not a big shock that Tom Caruth is the gift that keeps on giving.
That's right. That's right. It is indeed a great rose. I have about 5 shrubs of this rose, and it's actually fairly low growing. So it's a good ground cover rose too. And it gives you tons and tons of blooms, and they're unique. So, people see them when you see them. It's a conversation starter too. Garden. So last but not least of this year's 2022 winners is a rose introduced or bred by Christian Bedard and introduced by Weeks Roses. It is a rose called Pink Freedom. It's a regional choice winner in 4 regions of the United States in the Northeast, Northwest, South Central, and Southeast.
Yeah, this is pretty. I mean, this is a really nice, it reminds me a bit of an old-fashioned China rose almost in the loose, like quilled petal form that it's got going on. And, you know, the blooms, you know, the photograph I'm looking at, the perched really nicely above the foliage. And I could see this being mass planted and just having incredible impact. And, you know, couple this with some grays, like you underplant it with some lamb's ears or something along, or, you know, Artemisia or something like that. I mean, what a beautiful, beautiful little rose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a stunner.
Yeah, so it's great. So wonderful. So we've got 4 2022 winners, folks. And again, you can find these on the AGRS website, as well as all the past winners as well. So be sure to check all those out. And also, you know, continue in the next year, we'll have new winners again, and we'll be back here again announcing them. So these are roses you can grow. Now, Chris, what I'd like to do before we go away from this, because we talked about the 2022 winners, you're a passionate rose grower in you know, just outside Birmingham, Alabama, zone 8A, if my memory serves.
It is 8A.
Yeah, 8A. And so just, you know, so now as a rose lover, you know, take your hat off from your AGRS, you know, position that you have, and just talk about some of the past winners that you have personally grown in your Alabama 8A garden, and just, you know, tell us about them from here, not from here.
Yeah, well, I think my top one of all of the roses that I have grown in recent years is a David Austin introduction called The Lady of Shalott. If you love the romance of the English garden, The Lady of Shalott will give you that. And my previous garden was very small, and I wanted that English garden, cottage garden look and feel, and The Lady of Shalott helped me get there. Now, the color of this rose is sort of an orange and pink variation, and it sort of fades to a darker color before the petals fall. And it has lots of petals, but it reproduces quickly, which I think is a breakthrough in genetics for the folks at David Austin. And, you know, like all their roses, it's very fragrant too.
Yeah, that's a beautiful color, and it's nice to see that, you know, this is sort of the color range that came into play when Lady Emma Hamilton was introduced by the David Austin folks, and it's nice to see them expanding on it. It's a beautiful rose. So,
yeah, absolutely. One of the other roses that I wanted to talk about was Tahitian Treasure, which is a rose that was introduced by Star Roses and Plants several years ago as a winner for the Southeast region. And it actually took a couple of years in the garden to get established, but year 3, it took off and has just been a powerhouse of blooms since then. And sort of a unique coloration on that rose too, with sort of a pink and orange. You know, kind of a themes emerging here with pink and orange roses, but, you know, they just grab a lot of attention in the garden. And they're very highly disease resistant. You know, I don't spray my garden. I don't put any chemicals in my garden at all. So, and it does very, very well.
yeah, I mean, these hot colors though are important in the garden, because otherwise the garden can look almost monochromatic, and you need these colors to pop the softer colors. And I think that this certainly fills the bill on that one.
Sure. And I guess the last rose I want to talk about is a rose from Weeks Roses called Top Gun. That was, I think, was a winner last year, but I've grown it for several years. And, you know, it's a single open petal rose. I have actually 6 shrubs of it, and I grow it as a hedge in front of my spring porch. And it is a rapid grower, frequent bloomer, totally disease-free. Haven't seen a spot on it. The bugs don't seem to bother it. It's great. Just color and foliage all season long.
Yeah, that's a lovely rose. I mean, I love the singles and the semi-doubles. And for folks who are gardening at home, one of the things, if you have a place that doesn't maybe get as much sun, you might try something like a Top Gun, because generally roses with less petals have a better chance of opening in less light conditions. Just a little growing tip for you there. So Chris, this has been great. I think, I love the trials. We've talked about that. The winners, thank you for coming on board and announcing them. And I think, what you guys are doing at AGRS is you're again, leading the way and making another step towards making rose growing easy for everybody.
Well, it's been fun, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Always good to talk to you.
You too.